The invisible touch. Most men spend their lives trying to figure out where to touch a woman. But the secret has never been in her body, but in what happens before the touch. While the average man chases physical reactions, the rare man awakens something she doesn't understand, but feels. She may deny it, she may resist, she may even feign indifference, but she can't erase from her mind that instant when you did nothing, and yet she trembled inside. Because the real touch starts in the air. It's the gaze that remains steady, even when she tries to look away. It's the calmness that bothers, the silence that weighs, the breathing that seems to measure time. It's the moment when she realizes that you don't need to advance to be in control. Desire is born not in contact, but in waiting. And it is this waiting that separates the hungry man from the man who knows the value of hunger. She feels it when she is in front of a man who controls himself. And that's what confuses her, because the feminine has been trained to deal with haste, with easy praise, with quick surrender. But not with the man who looks deep, and even though he can, chooses not to touch. This invisible gesture awakens something primal, something that no conversation explains. She feels presence, authority, and danger, all at the same time. And it is in this contrast that her body gets lost. Most don't understand. You don't awaken a woman when you touch her body. You awaken her when you make her imagine what would happen if you touched her. That is the power of dominance, the touch that exists only in the field of the mind, but that she feels as if it were real. And the more you hold back, the more her body calls you. It's as if she were fighting against an invisible magnet, and each second of silence increased the strength of that field. So tell me one thing. How many times have you noticed that the simple fact of being near her changed the air of the environment? How many times has she gotten lost in her own words, just because you didn't react like the others? If this has already happened, it's because you, even without realizing it, have already touched where no other man has managed to, in her mind. And before continuing, I want you to do one simple thing. Comment your age and city below. I want to know how far this message is reaching. And if this type of truth speaks to you, subscribe now, because what comes next is not for ordinary men. The next minute will show you the first place where a man touches a woman, without using his hands. The gaze that commands. Before a man touches her, she already knows what he wants. The female body feels before the mind. And that's why the gaze is the most powerful weapon a man can have, because it anticipates desire, without having to pronounce a word. Most men look like they are asking, begging, pleading for attention. But the man who understood the game looks like he already possesses. The gaze of a disciplined man does not seek, he reads. He observes the details, perceives the discomfort, identifies the curiosity. He doesn't look away, but he also doesn't invade. He maintains a firm, calm presence, as if saying, I know what you're feeling, and I don't need to do anything about it. It is in this calmness that the feminine gets lost, because she feels that she is not in front of a boy wanting to prove something, but a man who has already won within himself. When you look like that, the air changes. She feels the weight of your silence. It's as if you touched her skin with your eyes and left an invisible mark. The woman feels when she is observed with intention, but without need. And this balance between desire and dominance is what makes her vulnerable. It is not the aggressive look that attracts. It is the look that contains violence without needing to use it. She wonders, why doesn't he react? Why does he look at me like that, as if he already knew what was going to happen? And while she tries to decipher, she is already inside the game. The gaze that commands is the one that creates doubt, and doubt is the exact point where desire is born. It is the type of look that is not explained. It is felt. A look that says, I could, but not yet. Remember what I told you? The real touch starts before the touch, and the gaze is the first contact between the physical and the mental. It is the silent invitation to a game that only the calm man is capable of playing, because when the whole world rushes to be seen, the man who observes is the only one who is really remembered. She can turn around, disguise, pretend she didn't notice, but something inside her has already moved. Her gaze will try to escape yours, and the more she tries, the more she gets caught. Have you noticed this? Her struggle to appear in control, when in reality, You are the one who dictates the rhythm of silence. Therefore, never underestimate the power of a contained gaze, a look that does not ask, but announces, a look that does not invade, but dominates. It is the first form of touch, the first form of command, and the woman who feels this never looks at another man the same way again. The silence that provokes most men believe that power is in words. They try to convince, explain, argue, as if the feminine surrendered to logic. But the woman does not surrender to explanation. She surrenders to energy. And there is no energy more powerful than the silence of a man who knows what he is doing. True silence is not absence of sound. It is presence. It is the space where she tries to decipher what you feel and finds no answer. And this emptiness is what creates the fascination. Because the feminine cannot stand the mystery. She needs to understand, control, name. But in front of a man who does not rush to explain himself, she loses her footing. How many times have you seen this happen? She talks, provokes, tests, and you don't react. The calmness on your face is the mirror where her emotional side is reflected. She projects, imagines, creates stories, and while she tries to understand you, she is already thinking about you more than she would like. A man in silence is like a locked room. The more she tries to enter, the more the desire increases. Because mystery is the food of the feminine, and silence is the scent she can't stop looking for. The man who dominates his own impulse, who does not try to fill the air with unnecessary words, creates tension. And tension is the first stage of pleasure. It is in silence that contrast is born, between calm and danger, between self-control and what could happen if he broke that control. She feels this risk, even without realizing it. And the more you contain, the more she imagines. She doesn't want a predictable man. She wants a man who makes her imagine what will come next. Therefore, when you are in front of her, talk less, look more, breathe slowly, remain present. Let the silence itself speak for you. It is in this interval between the words that desire is born, because it is there that the feminine projects everything she wants you to be. Most try to impress with what they say. The man who understands the game impresses with what he doesn't say. And that's why silence, when used well, is more provocative than any phrase. Because the real power is in letting her think about what you could have said, but didn't. In the end, the man who talks too much explains himself. The man who remains silent becomes a mystery. And mystery, my friend, is the only place where feminine desire never rests. The time she doesn't wait for the modern man lives in a hurry. He wants everything fast, easy, immediate. He wants response, reaction, surrender. But the feminine does not flourish in haste. It flourishes at the right time, in the space between intention and gesture. And it is there, in this interval, that the true power of a man is born. Time is the territory of dominance. The common man accelerates the rhythm. The disciplined man controls it. He understands that desire is not about arriving. It's about making the journey last. The woman feels this from afar. She realizes when she is in front of someone who knows how to conduct time. The man who does not rush creates an atmosphere where every second is an invitation, where every silence is an unspoken promise, and the longer he takes, the more she wants. The secret has never been to be fast. It has been to be intentional. Each look, each pause, each breath has a weight. She feels when your rhythm is natural and when it is calculated. And that's where the enchantment begins. When she understands that you are not reacting to desire, you are commanding desire. The man who dominates time transforms waiting into tension. And tension is the fuel of pleasure. He knows that a delayed touch is worth more than 1,000 rushed ones. He understands that mystery grows when action is delayed, and that desire explodes exactly at the moment when the feminine can no longer stand the silence. How many times has she approached expecting your haste, and you remained still, just observing her? How many times has she wanted to rush the surrender, and you preferred to just smile in silence? This is the instant when she realizes that you are the rhythm. You are not running after anything. It is time that revolves around you. The feminine surrenders to the man who slows her down, to the man who makes her breathe differently, who changes the natural compass of her body without needing to touch. She doesn't understand the reason, but she feels the effect, as if time itself bowed to your presence. And the most curious thing is that when the man dominates time, the woman forgets the clock. She loses track of the hours, the pauses, of what she should do. Because masculine dominance is not in advancing. It is in deciding when nothing happens. Slowness, when done with intention, is the most dangerous form of power. And the man who understands this doesn't need to run after anything. He just walks, and the world, including her, starts to follow him. The mystery that feeds desire. She does not desire what she understands. She desires what confuses her. That's why the predictable man dies quickly in the feminine mind. Because mystery is the food of desire. And the man who explains himself too much kills his own aura. The woman is attracted to the unknown, to what provokes doubt, to the man who speaks little and, even so, makes her think about him when the room is dark. Mystery is not about hiding. It's about dosing. The mysterious man shows enough to ignite the imagination, but keeps the rest inside a gaze that never gives everything away. It is the type of presence that leaves space for the feminine to dream, project, fantasize, and the more she imagines, the more he becomes real inside her. Mystery is the bridge between what she sees and what she feels, and the man who dominates this bridge doesn't need to run after, he becomes the path. Mystery is the perfume of the masculine mind. You don't force it, you leave it in the air. It's the way you speak, paused, firm, without haste. It's the way you end a conversation without explanations, leaving open questions that she will never be able to silence again. It's the way you make her feel that there is something in you that no one knows completely. And that's exactly what holds her. The feminine feeds on doubt, and the man who knows how to create doubt creates desire. It's not about feigning indifference. It's about dominating your own rhythm. It's about letting silence speak first, letting the gaze insinuate, letting absence do the work that words would never do. While the other men try to prove value with obvious gestures, the enigmatic man just exists, and his presence is enough. She starts to look for meaning in your gestures, to reread simple messages trying to find something that maybe doesn't exist. And it is in this maybe that desire grows. Mystery is an invisible seed planted in her mind that germinates in the dark, in the silent hours of the dawn, when she tries to understand why she is thinking about you for no apparent reason. The mysterious man is not cold, he is deep. He doesn't run away, he just moves at the right time. He doesn't answer everything, because he knows that mystery keeps the flame alive. Predictability is the antidote to desire, and the man who reveals everything kills his own enchantment. Remember, the woman doesn't just want to know who you are. She wants to discover. And if you give everything, the game is over. But if you leave traces, signs, pauses, and silences, she herself will create the path that leads her back to you, and she will think it was her choice. Without realizing that, all the time, it was you who guided the labyrinth. The absence that burns. There are men who mark when they are present, and there are those who mark when they have already left. The first is forgotten over time. The second never leaves her mind. Absence is a weapon that few know how to use, because it only works when it comes from a man who has already left something inside, not in the body, but in the mind. It is the type of presence that remains, even when the sound of your voice has already faded. She tries to follow, distract herself, fill the silence with anything. But suddenly, something in her gets lost. The air seems lighter, the environment colder, and it is there, in this emptiness, that she feels your absence. Absence is the perfume that remains after you leave, and the man who dominates this power doesn't need to insist. He leaves at the right time, in the middle of curiosity, at the height of interest. And that's what burns her, because the feminine desires continuity, but gets addicted to what is interrupted at the exact point. You don't need to close the cycle, just leave half of the story unfinished. The woman misses not the touch, but the invisible control you had over the environment, the way you spoke little, the weight of your breathing, the rhythm that your gaze imposed without effort. She misses what she didn't understand. And that's why you come back. Not because you insist, but because you left open questions. When the man understands the value of absence, he discovers that being too close weakens the enchantment. Distance well used is like slow fire. It doesn't consume all at once, but cooks desire little by little. And the feminine, without realizing it, begins to feed on this lack. She misses even things that never happened, gestures she only imagined, conversations that never existed, all created by the mind that you knew how to leave empty at the right time. The common man tries to maintain interest. The Spartan man abandons with purpose. He knows that absence is refined presence. It is the echo of dominance. It is the memory that does not need words. It is the type of energy that invades the thought when the woman is alone, lying down in silence, looking at the ceiling and wondering, why is he still here, even without being here? The secret is simple. Absence only burns when it was preceded by true presence. And the man who understands this doesn't need to explain himself, because her mind will do the work alone, feeding the fire that you lit and left unextinguished. When she loses control, there is an instant when everything changes. She still talks, still moves, still tries to maintain the same countenance, but something inside her has already yielded. The body begins to respond before reason, and what the mind calls interest is, in reality, emotional submission. Not an imposed submission, but a silent surrender, born from the sensation of being in front of a man who doesn't need to prove anything. She feels that she no longer has control, and yet she doesn't want to run away. It is the type of confusion that is addictive, because the feminine has always believed that the one who dominates is the one who speaks louder, the one who imposes himself, the one who demands. But now, in front of a silent, firm, impenetrable man, she discovers that true power is control within calmness. The woman doesn't lose control because you touched her body. She loses it because you touched her pride. You made her feel that, even with all the games, she didn't move you. You didn't react, didn't beg, didn't need to. And it is this controlled indifference that breaks the defenses. Because deep down, the feminine desires to find something that it cannot manipulate. And when it finds, it surrenders. She starts to think about you at strange hours. She imagines what you are doing. She looks for signs, interprets silences, revisits old conversations. The control is no longer hers. The simple fact that you exist in silence is enough to leave her in motion. And the most curious thing, she calls this longing, curiosity, interest. But the true name is dominance. You didn't ask. You didn't promise. You didn't promise anything. But she feels that something in you demands respect. It is the type of presence that is not begged. It is felt. She tries to compete, test you, provoke jealousy. And all you do is remain where you are, immobile, calm, unshakable. This calmness is what destroys her from within. Because the man who does not waver shows that he does not need anyone to be whole. And the feminine recognizes this as strength. And that's what she desires. Not the body, not the face, but the feeling of security mixed with danger. The fear of losing something she doesn't even have. The desire to approach, and the fear of losing balance at the same time. She lost control, not because you did something, but because you didn't do. And it is this not doing that she never manages to understand. While the whole world tries to call her attention, you are the only one who is missed even in silence. That's where the game ends. And she, without realizing it, starts another, the game of trying to decipher you. But the man who dominates does not let himself be deciphered, because mystery is the sweetest prison a woman can inhabit. The pleasure of tension. The common man seeks pleasure. The Spartan man creates tension. Because pleasure is fragile, momentary, ephemeral. But tension is the fire that never goes out. It is the space between wanting and being able to. It is the instant when the body asks for something, and the mind denies. And the more you deny, the more she desires. The feminine feels when it is in front of a man who doesn't need to yield. His calmness disturbs her. His steady gaze exposes her. And silence, that one, corrodes her from within. She feels the danger of self-control. Because the man who dominates his own hunger dominates the rhythm of her pleasure. Tension is the invisible game between presence and absence. You get close enough for her to feel the heat, but not enough to touch it. You speak slowly, and the pause between the words becomes the point of greatest impact. She tries to decipher what will come next, and that's where desire is born. Because tension is the prelude to surrender, and surrender when it happens is no longer a choice. It is instinct. Anxious men seek the end. Disciplined men prolong the middle. They understand that the feminine mind does not get caught in what ends, but in what never happened completely. The woman feeds on the almost, on the touch that didn't come, the kiss that didn't happen, the gaze that promised everything and stopped before. It is in this pause that pleasure grows. It is there that tension transforms into fire. You don't need to accelerate. You don't need to prove anything. Because pleasure is not in the act, but in the waiting. Pleasure is in seeing her body respond to something you haven't even done yet. It is in noticing the breathing change, the posture tremble, her eyes trying to disguise what the body has already given away. This is the dance of dominance. The man who holds back the impulse and makes control his form of touch. Tension is the territory of those who know how to feel. And the man who understands it doesn't need to be the most handsome, nor the most experienced, just the calmest. Because calmness is what transforms presence into power. And power, when it comes from self-control, becomes pure desire. Have you noticed that the more you contain yourself, the more she observes you? The more you retreat, the more she tries to advance. This is the essence of the game. The pleasure of tension is in the dominance of one's own will, and the man who dominates himself is the only one capable of awakening the hunger that no other presence satisfies. Tension is the pleasure before pleasure. It is the promise that is not fulfilled, but that keeps the fire burning. And the man who understands this does not seek the end. He becomes the interval that she never wants to end. The type of man she never forgets. She may meet many men throughout her life. Some make her laugh, others distract her for a while. But there is one, only one, that she never forgets. Not for beauty, not for promises, not for intensity, but because he knew how to remain present without needing to be. This is the man who doesn't run after, but also never moves away completely. The man who, even in silence, still occupies space inside her. He doesn't beg, doesn't compete, doesn't try to be remembered. He just exists with so much truth that her mind cannot turn him off. This man doesn't talk about feelings. He provokes them. He doesn't need to prove value. He emanates it. He doesn't force presence. He creates it naturally, as if the air moved with him. The type of man who doesn't need to shout to be heard, because the simple sound of his absence already speaks enough. She tries to move on. She goes out with others, talks, distracts herself. But at some point, always, the memory returns. A perfume, a phrase, a look, anything that reminds her of his control. And her mind returns, like someone revisiting a silent temple, a place where she felt what no word could describe. Do you know why? Because this man didn't want anything. He didn't ask, didn't insist, didn't promise. And that's exactly what makes him unforgettable. The woman never forgets the man who didn't need her, because the absence of need is the rarest form of power. She realizes that he was different, that there was something in him that didn't depend on anyone. And that haunts her, because the feminine is attracted to what it cannot control. The man she never forgets is the one who understood the value of distance, the weight of silence, the power of a contained gaze. It is the man who knew what he wanted, but did not rush, who knew when to stop, when to disappear, when to let the air work for him, who knew that true presence is a lasting impression, not momentary insistence. She will say that she has already moved on. But when she lies in the dark, she feels something she doesn't know how to name. It is not longing, nor love, nor desire. It is the memory of having been in front of something that does not repeat itself. In front of a man who carried the type of calmness that disturbs, the energy of someone who could set the world on fire, but chooses not to light the match. The man she never forgets is not the one who made her feel alive. It is the one who made her see herself, and that scares her. because the mirror he showed was too real. And the woman never forgets the man who, for an instant, made her stop pretending. In the end, everything boils down to a single truth. The man who dominates himself doesn't need to conquer anyone, because internal dominance is the type of power that the world feels, even in silence. And the feminine, consciously or not, recognizes this strength. It is not the body, it is not the voice, it is not the gaze, it is the calmness that only exists in those who have fought against themselves and won. The common man seeks to be desired. The disciplined man becomes desire itself. He doesn't need to seduce. The simple act of existing is enough, because there is something in his energy that does not ask. It imposes respect, and respect, when it comes together with mystery, transforms into pure attraction. She feels, even when she doesn't want to, even when she tries to pretend she doesn't. She feels because her body recognizes the type of presence that is not forced. She can ignore it for a while, but the memory always comes back, and it comes back with force. Because the man who dominates his own fire becomes an eternal flame inside others. You don't need to be handsome. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to be whole. The whole man doesn't play. He observes. He doesn't promise. He fulfills. He doesn't run. He walks. And the world bows slowly before his constancy. This is the essence of dominance. It is not about defeating someone. It is about not needing to win to be victorious. The man who knows himself is the man that the feminine respects, because he does not seek approval, nor does he fear rejection. He lives in the middle ground between desire and control, and it is exactly there, in this balance, that power is born. So, remember, it is not the touch, it is not the kiss, it is not the body. It is the silence between the actions that makes her think about you when no one is watching. The man who understands this doesn't need to run after love, because he becomes the very object of love. Close your eyes now and take a deep breath. Everything you need to dominate is already inside you. And when you dominate yourself, the whole world will start to follow you, including her. Comment discipline if you understood, and stay on the screen. The next video is already appearing. It will show you the next level of control.